So with all the Age of Triumph live streams over with and Age of Triumph being right around the corner, a lot of you have been asking what my opinions are overall with this content being released, and just seeing what I see as good and bad out of it, when overall I feel like this content is great because it's free, so I can't really complain. But I will talk about some things that are questionable, that I find a little bit negative, that I feel like they could have gone a different route to make it a little bit better. But overall, I'm excited. Everything about it was really, really good. There were just some minor things that I feel that they should have taken note on or did something different. But overall, I'm not going to complain too much, at least, or rant about it, because this is free content. We shouldn't be complaining, to be honest. But there are things that would be understandable why to rant for this reason, like as in like talk about the negatives for this free content, because it's the last one for Destiny 1. So when it's been 5 years since you played Destiny 1, if you go back and play Destiny 1, this is what it's going to be like. This is what we're left with. So it's understandable that we want to make sure that it's perfect, because we want to leave Destiny 1 in a perfect way. So if we ever decided to go back to it just for the heck of it, we would have a ton of stuff to do, and it would feel really nice. So it's understandable of why we would talk about negatives on this free content, because of that reason. But I'll talk about the good stuff. For starters, just overall what they're doing with the raids is an amazing thing. It is disappointing that they're not going to have Skolas in there, but it's not technically a raid, so it's understandable. But it would have been really cool to have the weekly Challenge of the Elders switch between Challenge of the Elders and the old Prison of Elders, where not even just Skolas, but the other bosses from the original Prison of Elders. That would have been really, really cool in my opinion. But sadly, they probably just didn't know how to implement it other than just bumping up the light level. But they did a lot of other stuff, so I can understand that they just didn't know what to do with it, or they just didn't have the time to do it because they're working on Destiny 2. It's coming out really soon, so it's understandable. But with the raids, there is more than just bumping up the light level, which is interesting, actually. I was expecting them to just bump up the light level. That was it. And allow you to use the new weapons. I mean, like, as in, like, the old weapons, but they're new in light level to 400 light, the max light. It is also weird that they're not bumping the light level past 400, but I understand the reasoning. They don't want you to be grinding for light level anymore. It should be all about the loot, and it's risky to do that, because the light level thing allowed players to have a reason to grind. But with all this stuff, I feel like it is smart that they're playing it safe with the light level and just leaving it be, to allow players to not worry about that too much. And supposedly they're going to be very generous, so the grind might not be as painful as old Destiny grinding, especially for me with my original attempt to getting Vex Mythoclast. It was a hectic adventure. I had a couple funny moments about it, where I was just raging, trying so many times. I didn't get it until like House of Wolves, and yeah, I had to do it many, many times. Even where I wasn't recording, I was just doing LFG, and I was getting no Vex Mythoclast. So I really hope that they are being honest with it, being generous, and it's on point of being generous, because my version of generous is where you're getting a ton of stuff, and you get more luck with what you're trying to go for. So hopefully that's true. But going back to the raids on what they're doing other than just bumping up the light level, they're adding ornaments, and they're also adding some rewards that weren't originally in those raids. Like, they talked about ghost shells and sparrows that originally weren't for these raids. We'll probably get that, and I was just like, that's really interesting. I'm curious to see what drops then. It sounds exciting. And the other thing is, they are bringing back elemental primaries, but I'll talk about that when I start talking about negatives, because there is something about it where it's kind of questionable, but which you probably already kind of know if you've been reading up on it, but I'll talk about that later because I want to just talk about the great stuff. But it is really cool that they're bringing back elemental primaries. Necrochasm's making a return, and the coolest thing about Necrochasm is, see, it was an underwhelming exotic like raid primary when it was first released. It was difficult to get because you had to get the Crux Crota and you had to do all this stuff with the Husk of the Pit, and it just wasn't good because that archetype of auto rifle just wasn't really that great in both PvP and PvE. And even though its exotic perk was interesting, it made enemies, if you landed a headshot kill on an enemy, they would explode like a curse thrall, which was cool, but it would randomly proc, like it's not guaranteed. Going towards Taken King, they decided to buff it. Problem is, it wasn't going to be bumped up in light level with the Taken King, which is sad. We had to wait until now to have that experience, but basically they buffed it where every time you get a headshot, it'll proc the Curse Thrall thing, and that was amazing. Sadly, I only got to enjoy it for a week because Taken King came out and it was irrelevant with that light level. But now they're buffing it again where it procs every time you get a kill pretty much. It's not just headshots because they realize, it's difficult to do that with that kind of archetype. So I'm really excited to get that weapon. I heard that also they're doing a quest for it that will probably be a little bit better than the way it was before, grinding for the Husk of the Pit and the Crux of Crota and doing all that stuff. So it is interesting that they're doing a lot for Necrochasm. They're not doing anything to Vex Mythoclast, which I wish that they would at least bump up the magazine size, because I feel like it's a little small when it comes to PvE, but that's just me. I'm pretty sure a lot of you maybe also agree, but either way, it's coming back. They're also having ornaments for a lot of these weapons, like Necrochasm and Vex Mythoclast, which is also really cool. But the raid armor are also getting a ornament where it will change the design. So if you can run the classic look, but if you get the ornaments, which are only unlocked in the weekly rituals of the raid, so if it's the weekly and you do the challenges and stuff, you'll get ornaments. And I'm guessing also if you complete it, you get an ornament. But basically, they'll work for any of the armor. It's not like you have to specifically get the one from Wrath of Machine to get the Wrath of Machine ornaments or whatever. They all work for all of them. And thumbs up. And all the armor, in my opinion, were so cool. But, I mean, you're a beacon in PvP, to be honest. But I don't really care. I want to look like a green neon spiked hive dude. Like, the Crota Zen armor looked really cool. All of them did. And it was actually really cool that they even did stuff to the Wrath of the Machine. Like, they added another ornament other than just, like, the radiant red coming out. Like, they actually have, like, it's, like, more red and vibrant. So, I was like, oh, wow, they're doing stuff to even the newest raid. But the other thing is they are having, I did talk about Challenge of Elders being bumped up, but they also have a new weekly ritual, which is a story playlist kind of thing, where they'll have 2 planets or 2 DLCs for that week, and they'll be random when you play that playlist, and they'll have like modifiers. They'll be at 390 light or whatever, and yeah, I think that's a really good idea. Problem is, and this is a negative thing, which I know I was going to leave that to the end, but I'm getting there to the negative, so I might as well talk about it. But there's no matchmaking for either Challenge of the Elders or the weekly story thing. And I understand for Challenge of the Elders. I wish that they would just have optional matchmaking, though, because, again, this is ending Destiny on a good note. And I'm not here to complain, find friends. Yes, we could do that right now. But I'm talking about 5 years later when everyone's playing Destiny 2 or 3, depending on how many years we're going to have Destiny 2 relevant. And we go back to Destiny 1, and there's no one in LFG for that game anymore. So who's going to want to play with you in this playlist, the story playlist, or the Challenge of the Elders? It's just talking. It's more lines looking at the future because this is the last update. It's not looking at the now. Like now, we're not obviously gonna have that issue. You can easily find friends or random people to play with you in these playlists. But yeah, it's one small little negative thing. I wish that they would put playlists in. And before you say, well, I mean, they don't have the money for that, or they have too many servers for other stuff. They added matchmaking for the heroic playlist, which, by the way, is staying. But they're also removing playlists in the Crucible, so it's like, why not use those servers, that server playlist or whatever, for the story mission thing? I don't know. Yeah, they're limiting the Crucible playlist to like 5 playlists, and so, like, Clash won't always be there. It'll probably be, like, Supremacy or something else, which I'm fine with. I don't really need the complete variety all the time, but it is kind of questionable where it's, like, why not just leave it alone? And it would be nice if they just then put matchmaking or optional matchmaking into these other things, like Challenge of the Elders and the weekly story playlist. The other thing, speaking of the weekly ritual still, Nightfalls are going to, at least that's how they made it sound. I'm hoping it will be also a modifier for heroics because it sounds super fun. And that is the Daybreak modifier, which basically is like Mayhem Clash in PvP, where you get your abilities in super real quick. That's a Nightfall modifier. They also said Rainbow modifiers are coming back too, and that's interesting. But I really hope that Daybreak will also be inside of heroics, because I will enjoy the heck out of that, especially if it's like Solar Burn and I'm running as Sunbreaker and I'm just throwing hammers at everything. Like, it'd be a lot of fun. So I really enjoy doing heroic strikes when there's different modifiers going on and I mix around. And with Elemental Primaries making return, other than, just using Zalo, I can use Fatebringer when it's Arcburn. But I just hope that the modifier also goes for Siva Heroic Strikes, then just Nightfall. They made it sound like it was just a Nightfall thing. Same thing with the Rainbow modifier, which obviously buffs up all burns damage, which is a good thing for you, but also a bad thing for you because all enemies now do extra damage. But the other thing was for Nightfalls is they are having the Blue Flame return. They're not reverting back the old Nightfall where if you all died, you go to orbit. It's keeping the same way it has been. You just will get the flaming helmet or flaming head. I mean, thing is it's not just a cosmetic thing. Thank goodness. They're actually bringing also the reputation boost with it, an XP boost with it. So it gives you more of a reason of doing the Nightfalls first, or just as early as possible until you start playing everything else. So that's a really good positive thing. So I actually like that. I'm really understanding the point where they said we're going to be very generous. They also will have 2 weekly bounties for shacks, speaking of generous, where you can do 2 of the weeklies if you want for shacks and get the double, like pretty much if you have 6 characters, that's 6 rewards. I mean, 6 characters, 3 characters, that's 6 rewards. But yeah, generous. It's really nice. I mean, there's a ton of other stuff they talked about with the balancing, and I am glad that they're fixing a lot of these exploits that were happening, like the Sunsinger glitch that would happen. They're nerfing Scory, thank goodness, so people can't just sit in the back and do nothing. They actually have to get a kill, and the No Land is getting nerfed, sadly. I feel like it's kind of twisting my arm because they're like, here's an ornament, but it's going to be flinching like crazy and make you feel frustrated using it. I'm very anti on nerfing the snipers and with the whole flinching. I much rather see an aim assist drop if it's such a problem. Hand cannons are also getting a range nerf, which is disappointing, but they say that it will probably even it out a little bit with balancing, and auto rifles surprisingly are getting another nerf, so I'm holding on to those auto rifles I have. It's because they might be coming back. I keep saying that every time they say like, oh, we're gonna bump up the damage by 0.02%. They're like, it's a number. But the Nolan is still getting an ornament, which is nice. That's just my opinion about nerfing and such. I'm not a big fan, and that goes the same with shotguns. It's everything in general, pretty much, but I can understand how annoying it could be, like, just shooting first at an enemy, and they just don't even react and just shoot you with the no-land. But at the same time, that also caused problems with people not even doing anything skillful and pot-shotting down a hallway. It's not really that fun for the sniper. But sidearms are also getting a nerf. Not really anything ridiculous. They're keeping that whole special always, at spawn. You just get one a magazine, and you can't just keep getting more ammo if you get the boxes. Every time a new round of trials, for example, you'll have just that magazine. So that's fine. I didn't want them to completely ruin sidearms because the purpose was that you had ammo with those things. So yeah, that's a good thing. At least for me, it's a good thing. It's not like they ruined it. But now, the only real negative thing is it goes hand to hand with two things. Obviously, hand to hand, you know what I mean. Whatever. So I'm just rambling here, but basically, they're going to have elemental primaries of the raid weapons. Even new raid weapons that didn't have a element to it are getting one, and that's good. I actually love that. I like to see what kind of burns they're going to have on some of these weapons. And their designs are a little bit different, too, if you get the Adept version. And basically, the Adept versions that will have an element on it, that's it, just an element, like a burn to it, will be an exotic. The legendary version, like if you get a legendary version Fatebringer, it won't have a burn on it. So the differences of the exotic and the legendary is if it has a burn or not. And I'd be perfectly fine with that because it's an exotic, so if you ever want it back, if you delete it, you can just get it back from the kiosk. It's different, obviously, with the legendaries, but the problem is that I'm not going to always want to just delete to make room for all these adepts, because I want to hold on to a lot of this raid stuff, and my vault is already getting pretty filled up, and they're not adding vault space, sadly. Like, that's it. That's all we're going to get as vault space that we got, like, I don't know, during Taken King, I think was the last one, or the April update, I can't remember, but, like, I mean the April update with the Challenge of the Elders thing. The fact that they're not increasing vault and they're having a ton of stuff, I feel like it would have been better if they just had both of them having, I mean, not both, but just having the burn on the legendaries and not making the whole exotic thing, or having the exotic thing, but you can have the intrinsic perk of, I think it's called life or whatever, the one that basically you can have two exotics equipped, like it's not counting it as an exotic, like the cloaks. Yes, I understand that then you can run around with another weapon exotic, which that's new, but it's not OP, you just have a burn on it, and if they're seriously going to think that it's OP to have a burn on a weapon, and that's the exotic thing about it, in my opinion, I don't think so. Because it's not like they're Zalo, where they have that whole Chain Lightning exotic perk where they're actually exotic because they're, they have something exotic to it. Fatebringer, without a burn, is just an Imago loop, pretty much. There's nothing really exotic about it. So, yeah, that's the only disappointing thing, but it's not really completely negative because I'll deal with it. But it is kind of bothering because of the whole vault space, and now they're having they're even saying, like, if you want to run this weapon PvP and not have to waste that exotic slot, then use the legendary version that don't have a burn on it, because obviously the only thing that makes the other one exotic is a burn. Obviously that's not going to help you in PvP. Like, this is not like there's void burn in Clash. So yeah, that's the only negative thing I can really think of, and obviously the optional matchmaking not being there, and because of the fact that they're limiting the playlist for Crucible. But overall, this whole content thing is great, and yes, there's microtransactions, and I found that really funny because all this stuff will not go into Destiny 2. Everything. None of your cosmetics. Anything you spent money on is not going to Destiny 2, which is disappointing. Not even your emblems. And you can buy these treasure boxes, but I really recommend not doing so because why would you? And you can get up to 3 each week, which is great. And with Silver Dust, you can get pretty much anything from the Silver Dust kiosk. And they're pretty generous on the prices with the Silver Dust, but it is nice that the treasure boxes will have everything, even Dawning Armor and all this stuff. It's chance, though. So you're playing chance with a bunch of stuff. But either way, don't be spending money on it. I feel like, in my opinion, just don't. I've spent money on, sadly, like the Festival of the Lost masks, and I kind of regret it because it's not going to transfer to Destiny 2. Can't bring my Crota mask with me, or I can't bring my Dawning Armor with me. So I would not recommend spending money. But if you want to do it, it's your money. It's understandable. I just feel like I don't think it's really worth it, especially since you can get 3 each week. So if you're playing the game, might as well just get it legitly. But overall, this is really great. Oh, one more thing. One more small negative, but it's kind of big. So we have all this PvE stuff, all this PvE greatness, this whole, great way of ending Destiny with all this stuff, with the PvE. What about PvP? Yes, we get double shack bounties, and kind of we're getting a limitation on the playlist, which is not really a good thing. What about trials? They did not say anything about that. And I'm not saying, oh, PvP should get attention, but maybe at least trials, because it'd be really cool if they brought back old trials weapons to be earned in the new light level system, like the old messenger. Like, I still have mine, my original Adept messenger that had solar to it, and it is disappointing that they're not going to allow you to get the old messenger and stuff like that, House of Wolves trials weapons, when that would be a great way to end this Destiny content, with trials getting something, and maybe even Crucible getting some more love, like getting old Crucible weapons, which they do have some, obviously, but it'd just be really cool to see them do something also with the PvP, because they obviously aren't doing much of anything for it. So seeing trials not get anything kind of makes you go, is it really worth it to grind trials then? Because I pretty much got all the Adept weapons, but the only thing that they're doing with trials, obviously, is just the addition of the page in the book to get the trials score stuff. So it's negative, because it would be nice to have something in the trials to give purpose of grinding it if you have been royally playing it. But it's still a fun mode. It's not like the loot is always the main thing for people. It's the fun about it. That's another big thing. But that's really it. Overall, this is free content, so I can't complain. They have a ton of stuff, and I'm pretty sure I missed out on a lot of stuff to talk about, but that I didn't mention in this video. But all this stuff was great. It's a really great way of ending Destiny. For free content, spot on, in my opinion. It's not bad at all. There are obviously just a few things that I feel like that could have been a little bit better, but it's free. We're not paying for it. So, whatever. And I'm excited for Destiny 2, so it is nice to have something of a reason to play Destiny 1 in the meantime. And I am really excited to play Vault of Glass again and see what these new challenges are for these raids that originally didn't have a challenge. So, overall, great. And I'd like to know your opinions as well. If you want to add anything to the conversation that I didn't, do you want to just share your opinion? Do you agree, disagree, or have anything to add to my conversation? Then let me know in the comments down below. But either way, thanks for listening. Chibi out.